Hi, everyone. So, today we're going to talk about codependent behaviors that sabotage your life, your relationship, your careers. So, let me wait for a couple more people to come through and we're going to get going. So, first, I'm going to talk about what is codependency, how does it occur, and then we're going to get into behavioral patterns that are most commonly noticed with codependence. And we're going to talk about the implications that codependent behavior patterns have in our life. So let me light my candle and then wait for a couple more minutes. Welcome, welcome. So let's get into. Let me just light my candle and say a quick little prayer. Thank you, God, for this year. Thank you, God, for this year. We hope Happy New Year, everyone. By the way, is this my first live of the new year? I think it is. Ooh, oh, right. So yeah, Happy New Year, everyone, and let's get into what is codependency. How does it come about, and what are the typical codependent patterns that lead to self sabotage in our life, relationships, behavior, health, etc. So, what is codependency? Codependency is a behavioral pattern or cluster of traits in human beings that are developed because they have lost their sense of self. So, when your sense of self or who you are is diminished, rejected, you stop identifying with it and you buy into what the other person is telling you you are. So codependents usually do not have a sense of identity. They buy into other people's thoughts. They look to other people to love them, care for them, tell them that they're worthy. So a codependent individual is other focused, and that's one of the biggest challenges we have, that because codependents do so much with other people in mind, they usually lose focus on what their needs are, what their desires, what their wants are. And it's really good because society loves codependence because we're people who care for others, we're there for others. We keep others in mind way more than we think about ourselves. So let's get into the behavioral patterns that actually sabotage us. And this is typical codependence patterns that are very pervasive, that are everywhere. So let's look at the first codependent pattern that is hurting you. And if you identify with it, I'm going to talk about how you can improve it, right? So when you attune yourself and get to know yourself, and you notice that your subconscious beliefs and your thoughts and your behavioral patterns are not getting you the results you want, they're not your focus, that you're not focused on your own growth, that's when you realize, oh, I may have codependent patterns. So by bringing these unconscious patterns into awareness, you can start to bring about a change where you start to get to know yourself, have compassion and love for yourself, and then slowly rewire your behavioral patterns, rewire your thoughts and feelings. Because a codependent, not only is their behavior other focus, but their thoughts, their feelings, their whole being is defined by other people, be it society, be it parents, right? So, so one of the most typical behavioral pattern that I notice is that codependents are indecisive. And I'm not talking about these patterns in a negative way, because codependents are really good people, but these patterns of behavior help others but actually hurt you. So behavioral pattern of making difficulty making decisions or indecisiveness, right? And this indecisiveness, difficulty making decisions, comes from a fear of making the wrong choice, or what will other people say, will I be judged for this, will they like it, right? Is this the right decision? Because we don't have enough practice of making our own decisions and then facing the consequences, we tend to just sit with indecision. So the indecision is rooted in self-doubt, low self esteem, lack of trust in your own judgment, right? So a lot of times when we're children, our parents may tell us, you don't know, you need to do this better, you don't know, this is not the right decision. So households where parents don't let you have your own decisions, choices, preferences, your own voice, you don't speak up as much for yourself, such households usually have a codependent children, especially when there's a narcissist parent or a caregiver or a teacher around, right? So the result is when a narcissist grooms a codependent to follow their choices and do what the narc is telling them to do, codependents completely give up on their sense of decision, their choices, their identity, right? And that plants indecisiveness and self-doubt in you. So codependents will usually feel this paralyzing inability to move forward because they want permission, approval, they want an okay, that this decision is okay, you can do it, right? So even though the decision that they're going to take is not in their best interest, but they'll just do it because another person wants them to, right? We will sit for a long time weighing the pros and cons of even small decisions like choosing a restaurant or what do I want to do for the day, right? So to overcome this, it is very important to start trusting your instincts, observe your choices, preferences, what I like, and recognize that even no decision is okay as long as you own your decisions and you're ready to face the consequences. And you can start by making small decisions, and over time, you will make bigger decisions that will help you break this pattern of inability to make decisions, indecisiveness. So, number two, behavior pattern of judging what they think, what they say, what they do is not quite right, it's not good enough, like I'm not enough, right? You see that? So after recovery I feel like I am enough, but when you are a codependent still not in recovery yet, you will judge yourself very, very harshly. So most trauma survivors judge themselves harshly, believing that nothing they say or do is ever good enough. And this behavior stems from perfectionism or internalized criticism, leading to feelings of inadequacy, not feeling good enough, chronic dissatisfaction with themselves. Right? I want to change, I want to grow, I'm a constant project. Growth, and I need to be better. This type of thinking, when you think like you're not good enough, just judging yourself and criticizing yourself constantly, this is a behavioral pattern that stems from trauma and is a huge sign of codependency. And how do we overcome this perfectionist attitude? So, with self compassion, right, you've got to realize that if you set unrealistic standards for yourself, or you keep moving the carrot to achieve this and then I'll feel good enough, or get that and then I'll feel good enough, right? So you've got to realize that the way you are now is good enough. This is you presently with your shortcomings, right? Weaknesses, strengths, any criticism, any all your love. You're good. That's like the basic foundational radical acceptance that you have to come about and accept. And that's the first step, really. So acknowledge that nobody is perfect, and you're a human and you're not perfect, that you are going to make mistakes, and then you're going to learn from your mistakes, or there will be setback. But when you do break this pattern and you do become somebody who's making decisions and is not paralyzed by perfectionism, start to celebrate those small victories. And that's how I began too. I'm definitely a perfectionist, recovering perfectionist. And as I did the healing work, I realized that the way I was and the way I am, it is good enough. And you can grow, but you've got to, in order to grow and improve, you've got to love who you are in the present moment, right? And that's a challenge when, if you've grown up in a traumatic household, it's a challenge to accept you the way you are. It's a challenge to feel that you're good enough. It's a challenge to break those perfectionist tendencies or people pleasing tendencies, right? So accepting, radical acceptance, get to know yourself, and then love yourself. And how do you love yourself? By really having compassion, right? That you are, the way you are is a product of so many things, but the way you are is perfect, right? Some people call it perfectly imperfect, or something like that. But and then the third behavioral pattern of being embarrassed or hesitant to receive any compliment, recognition, praise, or gifts, right? Some individuals, they feel embarrassed or uncomfortable when they receive recognition or praise or gifts. And this behavior really stems from a place of unworthiness, that they've been told that you're not good enough to receive gifts or compliments, or they don't have trust that the person who's giving them the gift or the compliment has good intentions, right? So when you have these feelings of inadequacy or shame or awkwardness about really accepting the goodness in you that somebody else is pointing out, and they're giving you a compliment and you're not able to accept it, that's definitely a sign of codependency, that you have been told or shown that you're not worthy. So now when someone does praise you, you question it. A lot of times there's mistrust in codependence. So that's another sign that you have traits of codependency, when you are not, or effect of childhood trauma, when you have mistrust. You're not able to trust at face value. You always think that there's a ulterior motive, or right. So understand that receiving praise or gifts or compliment is a reflection of your value. If someone compliments you and it's with good intention, accept it, because you know the energy and intention behind the compliment. Don't question it, just accept it. Practice graciously accepting compliments and recognition. So it's going to feel uncomfortable at first, but then you allow yourself to receive, right, with gratitude, and you sit in that. That I, if someone's giving you a compliment, I will sit with it. I'm not going to say, oh, no, 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 or she didn't mean it, or right. Don't reject another's person's love that they're sending to you. The next behavior, okay, let me look if there's any questions. And then I'm going to get into the next behavioral pattern. I usually go really fast. All right, no questions. So feel free to ask any questions. I'm going through behavioral patterns that are sabotaging your life as a codependent, and you might not be aware of them. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. It's been so busy. But yeah, so another pattern that's very common is putting more worth and value on other people's thinking or approval, permission, that they know better, that they have more. Like codependents put other people at a higher pedestal, because not only because they're humble, but also because of issues with low self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence. And they always think that, oh, putting other people, there's more value in other people's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, that their life is more important, right? So this behavior usually stems from deep need of external validation, right? That you value their opinions more, that you value their feelings, their behaviors more, and you need them to validate you. And that's a big sign of codependency. And And I say that external validation is one of the biggest drugs in our society, that people are just not able to love themselves for who they are. People are not able to satisfy themselves just with internal validation, this need to prove to others and then gain their respect and then gain their validation. That erodes your own sense of self, because you're in a constant state of chasing other for their love, approval, validation, right? You're constantly in this state of insecurity when you're chasing other people for their approval, for their validation. And this is very common and a hallmark sign of codependency, that you're chasing other people to for their approval. So for example, you might change your opinion to align with what someone else is saying, about sports or politics, or just, or you're just scared to express your true feelings because you don't want to be disapproved, right? And this creates a, if you do it all the time and you reject your own opinion, your own thoughts, your own values, in order to get win over the other person, get their validation, it creates a disconnect between your authentic self and the persona that you, so you're basically lying to the world when you're agreeing, when you're being too agreeable so you can get validated and accepted and approved by other people. So, to overcome this, it's crucial to cultivate self approval and trust your own judgment, which is hard to do. But you start from a place of, I'm worthy, I am intelligent, I know what's best for me. And that's the ground rule. Like, you are the one who knows yourself, you know where you're going, and only you can approve of yourself. So cultivate self approval and trust in your own judgment. And you begin by affirming your thoughts as valid. I'm thinking this, it's fine, it's valid. I'm feeling this, my feelings are valid. Well, right? Regardless of how other people feel about certain something, you have you have a right to feel the way you feel about things. So make decisions, so practice. Codependency healing and recovery is all about practicing. So practice making decisions based on your values, your beliefs, and as you build your self confidence, you will find that external validation is really not that important, right? People don't even know you the way you know yourself. So, external validation becomes less important as you recognize your worth and celebrate yourself and honor yourself and really trust that you have your own best interest at heart. So, what you think and what you feel matters, and you make decisions based on that. So, cultivate self approval. So, if you're going to take notes, or if you're taking notes right now, write down cultivate self approval. All right. So, for those of you joining now, let me review the behavioral patterns that we talked about already. So first, I defined what codependency is. Codependency is an identity that is based on other. It's an identity or a personality or a cluster of behaviors, thoughts, and feelings that are not based on your sense of self, that are not authentic, that are other focused, right? So codependents will think about what the other person would want me to think. They want to feel what the other person wants them to feel. Right. So, and it's always on a spectrum. As you do the recovery work, your codependent behaviors reduce. And what takes place of those behaviors is self esteem, self confidence, self worth, self approval, right? And one of the some of the behavioral patterns that I've already talked about is indecisiveness, pattern of difficulty making decisions. Then we talked about not feeling good enough. Then we talked about difficulty or being embarrassed or hesitant to receive a compliment or a praise or recognition. Then we talked about how codependency has you external focused and chasing external validation. So you put more approval and value on the opinion of husband, friend, father, brother, right? Teachers, etc., bosses. So it's so crucial for codependents to, or trauma survivors, let's call them trauma survivors because we are trauma survivors, right? Codependency is the result of surviving trauma, because when you were in that trauma, you had to reject yourself, suppress yourself, hide yourself, minimize yourself so you could survive, so that other people, so you could just go with the flow and do what other people want you to do so that you could survive, right? And not get rejected by the tribe, not get. So but now as a full adult, you recognize that I am not helpless, powerless, because as a child you had to reject yourself so you could listen to the adults around you in order to survive, or you will get hurt, or you will get rejected, or right. So now you realize I'm an adult, I'm not dependent on other people for my survival, I am not powerless or helpless, and I can turn inward and really see myself. What happens with codependence is that we just don't see ourselves. We see other people, we see other people's needs, desires, wants, we see what other people should or should not do, right? But we're so disconnected, right? Trauma survivors or codependents are so disconnected from their own sense of self that they don't even know what they want, need, desire. So cultivate, so sit with yourself, understand your feelings, watch your thoughts, right? And then turn inward to cultivate that sense of self. Like, this is me, these are my values, this is how I operate, this is what I like, these are my needs, right? That's the biggest hallmark sign of codependency, is that the person does not even know what their needs are. Hi, so Cynthia says, what are you psychic? Dealing with that this week. I constantly told my friend decisions or ask for opinions about creative ideas, or where I'm thinking of stores that I will approach to sell. Just need to keep my business to yourself, but it's hard, right? Because you are the one who knows your art the best, you are the one who knows your clients the best, you're the one who's going to do the research to see who, which stores, or what aligns with me. Another person is not going to know what aligns with you, and it's a burden for people who don't want to be in your business, healthy people. It's a burden for them. It's okay to discuss and brainstorm with friends, right? When there's exchange and reciprocity. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when people, she's copying me. Who's copying you? Some artist is copying you. That's not okay. But you know what? That's so common. People copy my work all the time. Big creators copy my work all the time. Um, but so important to realize that my friend is an artist too, and she's copying you. So yeah, you've got to have boundaries, keep your business to yourself, and see that's another thing that codependents struggle with. We don't see people for what they are. Even when people will show you what they are, we don't want to accept what they're showing, the colors that they're showing us, right? That's so common. We want to just see what we want to see. We want to see goodness in people. So boundaries are very important. Seeing people for who they are is important. And then yeah, so we talked about putting really good value, worth on who you are, your thoughts, your behavior, internal focus, right? So keep your energy for yourself, keep your energy for your goals. And then and then oversharing is definitely a sign that someone's been through trauma, that they're not comfortable sitting with their thoughts, that they need to feel like they need approval or celebration or validation, right? So the next thing we talked about is that codependents chase external validation, that it's like a drug. So you've got to learn to approve. Self approval, self trust is the medicine to heal codependency. And self approval, self trust comes from making those consistent small decisions, and then facing the consequences of your decisions and being okay with that, right? Not so. All right, so the next behavioral pattern that I notice in codependence is not being able to perceive yourself as lovable or worthwhile person. Self-worth is such a big issue with in codependency, or people who've survived trauma. Trauma survivors have difficulty seeing themselves as lovable or worthwhile. And this behavior comes from early childhood experiences of rejection, criticism, emotional neglect, right? So when somebody neglects you, that is abuse. And when someone neglects you, you also start neglecting yourself, right? And then that habit that neglect is internalized, and then you start to truly believe, I must not be worthy. That is why they're not giving me their love, their energy, their time, right? Whatever it is. So when people show you that they don't have time for you, energy for you, love for you, you've got to pull back as well. And you've got to give that love, that positive energy and fuel and self-love to yourself, right? So, and this only can happen when you believe that I am worthy, I'm a good person, I'm worthy of love, attention, care, reciprocity, right? And not believe that, oh, they're treating me poorly, so I must not be worthwhile person, right? So you might push people away because you believe that they will eventually, a lot of people do this. A lot of people push people away because they believe that, well, eventually they're going to leave me or reject me or criticize me. Or you don't pursue the goals or big dreams because you just feel I'm not deserving of that. Even though you don't say that out loud to you yourself, but you just don't pursue your goals because you feel like I'm going to fail, I'm not good enough, right? That whole worthiness is the big problem. Not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, not feeling lovable. Just because of the early childhood experiences, maybe the parents were busy, or they didn't say it, or they didn't have the skill, or maybe they were narcissists, right? There are many reasons why someone has low self esteem, low self confidence, because they just don't believe. You don't have self esteem now because you haven't had self esteem. And then that lack of self esteem, lack of self worth is showing up in your life as lack in all other areas, right? And this is a cycle. When somebody believes that they're undeserving of love or success, that shows up in every single aspect of your life. So, to overcome this, you've got to constantly and consistently challenge the behavior, the negative belief that you hold about yourself. You have to say it over and over again. I'm a worthy human being, I'm a good person, I'm deserving of love, I'm deserving of attention, I am worthy, right? And then validate yourself, honor yourself, hold yourself in so much regard. We're trained to give respect, honor, celebration to other people, but to heal from codependency, you've got to love yourself by showing honor, respect for yourself. Do things that earn your own respect. Stop self abandoning, right? That's one of the big problems with codependency, that Trauma survivors will abandon themselves in order to win other people or to get accepted, approved, to belong. The need to belong to other people is so strong in codependence that they reject their own self. So you've got to flip that around. You have to have this strong need to belong to yourself first, love yourself, honor yourself, celebrate yourself in action and words and plans and prioritizing yourself, right? You've got to challenge those negative beliefs that you hold about yourself by accepting yourself, loving yourself, honoring yourself, right? Start by recognizing your inherent worth. I have my clients write lists of all the good things that you have inside of you, right? It starts with, I don't know, I can't, and then it goes to 100 good things that I have that I did not even think. Oh, I didn't even think that being kind to others, I can be kind to myself too. I'm compassionate towards others. I can be compassionate towards myself too, right? So engage in positive self-talk. One of the big things with trauma survivors and codependents is that our self-talk sabotages us. It sabotages our relationships, it sabotages work. So you've got to flip your self-talk around. You've got to check your inner critic over and over again, so you're not blending in with your inner critic. Don't join forces with your inner critic. And let me look at some questions. All righty. So don't join forces with your inner critic. Be present to them and then question them constantly and ask them over and over again, why are you, but I'm not. There's no evidence that I'm a bad person or a selfish person, or whatever your inner critic. Usually people's inner critics has like 3 to 4 things that they say over and over again. Either the inner critic will try to put fear in you or shame in you, just try to hold you back. So you've got to question those internal beliefs, right? So, and the next is behavioral pattern of chasing recognition and praise and other people external validation to overcome the feelings of less than. So a lot of times people will feel inadequate inside, but then they'll chase outside other people recognition, award, money, cars, flashiness, all this to compensate for feeling inadequate or low self-worth. So this behavior comes from this deep need for external validation to fill an internal void, right? So internal void is caused by disconnection with your authentic self. So when you reject your true self because other people rejected your true self, there's a void because you abandoned yourself. And while seeking praise can provide relief and you can feel good, your self-esteem may feel good, but true self-esteem, stable, consistent self-confidence comes from other people, comes from you proving yourself, you dependent on your own decisions, your own worth, your own value, your self-esteem comes from you doing respectable, esteemable acts when no one is watching. So you're doing all this for yourself, but then once you've done the work, the result of this show in the outside world, right? So you may go out of your way to please other people, right? Take on more and more responsibility in the hopes of being accepted, praised, validated, recognized. And then when you don't get that, you went above and beyond. And when you don't get that recognition, you feel disappointed. There's resentment, right? There's resentment, there's feelings of inadequacy because you don't have intrinsic self-worth that you were doing to buy with your energy, with your actions. You were doing all this work in order to buy the feeling of feeling worthy, feeling validated, celebrated, praise is a big one, right? So realize that that will boost you up. Like, of course it feels good when other people praise you and all your efforts have paid off, but what if they don't? What if they don't praise you? They didn't want you to go above and beyond. Most people would accept that you go above and beyond, but there is really no prize in going above and beyond. You will feel used you when you do so much, and you don't get the same energy back in terms of celebration or honor. So practice acknowledging your own achievements, value your efforts, and regardless of what other people say. It's good if they praise you, but don't let that get to your head either. And don't get hung up on that drug of external validation. So cultivate, I will say this again and again, cultivate self approval, self praise, and develop that resilient, strong sense of self that is not dependent on other people. If other people are there supporting you, that's great. But if other people don't support your dreams and goals, you've still got to go after them, right? And that's the big difference between people who are healthy and secure and people who are still healing, is that we pause and wait for approval, permission. We watch what others are saying about when I say, oh, I'm going to do this. And then if do you wait and you wait for them to say yes or no, right? So this will lead to resentment, and resentments are such big enemies of codependent people or anybody. Resentments will hurt your health. Resentments will eat you alive, basically, right? So behavioral pattern of having difficulty admitting a mistake. So we talked about a little bit about people pleasing, we talked about perfectionism, then we talked about chasing others for self-esteem, self-confidence, chasing others for validation, right? So, and we talked about indecisiveness. So all these things, I want you, if you're new in the recovery world, you got to start watching. You got to start watching, what are my feelings? Do I know what I feel? Do I know why I feel this way? Do i do i accept my feelings and then choose to act or not act? Or do I wait for other people to make decisions for me and that I just blindly follow? So if you blindly follow what others are telling you to do, that's going to leave a hole in you. Alrighty. So let's continue. If there's any questions, just pop them in the chat. And I'm happy you are here to discuss and listen to the codependent patterns that are hurting your life. So this is a big one, and it's a very sneaky one. Behavior pattern of having difficulty admitting a mistake. So some individuals have difficulty admitting they made a mistake because of fear of judgment, rejection, or they don't want to look incompetent, right? So that's image is so important. When you are somebody who chases external validation, wants so badly to belong and be approved by others, and then usually if you are faking it a little bit in order to get approval and validation and love from outside, people can sense it, and you will not be able to make deep authentic relationships if you're faking it. So now, if you made a mistake and you don't want to admit it because you're scared and you don't want to look stupid, this is rooted in perfectionism, that you want to maintain that flawless image. So this inability to admit mistakes can hinder personal growth. It can damage relationships, and then you're constantly defensive and in this cycle of denial, right? So you may not take responsibility for the mistakes you made, and you deflect blame onto other people. or you make excuses. You don't own it. You don't own. That's like another hallmark sign of codependency. You don't own anything. You don't own your successes. You don't own your mistakes. You don't own your feelings. You don't know what your feelings are. You don't own your decisions. You don't own your decisions. So, how do you overcome this pattern of perfectionism and trying to keep this image? Right? So when you're somebody who makes a mistake but doesn't admit it or gets super defensive when you make a mistake, this leads to mistrust in relationships, lack of accountability, and people will know that you're not the real one, right? Because you really aren't being real when you make a mistake and then you cover it up, or you blame this one, that one, right? So that's another sign that even a lot of employers look for this. Like, if you made a mistake, it's okay, but are you coming forth with it and saying, hey, I need to learn, I made a mistake? So that's how you heal this pattern. So if you make mistakes, you embrace them, you own them as an opportunity of growth and learning, right? So this whole recovery for codependency is based on accepting that you are a worthy human being, that you can and you're a human being, that you it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to learn and grow. It's okay to face the consequences of your mistakes. So practice, so not be so fearful, right? Some of the main emotions that we see in codependence is shame, shame and fear and guilt, toxic guilt. So it's a really, really, there's we don't give ourselves room to make mistakes because we know how bad we're gonna feel. Not only because we're trying so hard to be perfect, but also because we're so scared. So if you're so fearful that you can't even make a mistake, imagine what kind of life you're leading. Right? I used to be like that. I could not make a mistake, and if I did make a mistake, I'd be like, oh well, right? So do not make excuses for your mistakes, own them, show up and face the consequences. Own your mistake, face the consequences, and then continue with the attitude of, I'm still a good person. This mistake doesn't define me. This mistake does not define my worth. So if you wasted years, for example, with a narcissist, right? That's number one thing that codependents beat themselves up over and over again, for not leaving soon enough, for falling in love with narcissists. I made a mistake picking the wrong people for friends, or right. So you have to understand that everybody has shortcomings, and maybe you just didn't learn how to pick the right people, or right. So but that was your old version. You learn from your mistake, you embrace every mistake as an opportunity for learning and growth, right? So let me see if there's any questions before we go on to the next pattern. All right, cool. So the next pattern is the need to be right. Oh, okay. So behavioral pattern of need to be right in eyes of other people, and lying to look good. Like, that's the most important thing. Bragging, that's very common. Embellishing your accomplishments in conversations, refusing to admit when you're wrong, right? All this leads to lack of authenticity. If you are someone who has this strong need to be perfect, strong need to be right in the eyes of others, even to a point of lying, exaggerating to maintain an image, there's a problem, right? This behavior is usually stems from insecurity, really. Insecurity, fear again, right? Fear of being seen as flawed or inadequate. And that is really in your own mind. If you make a mistake or if you come across as not perfect, people usually don't. notice it to a point of that's the only thing they're gonna focus on. You think that, you think if you make a mistake, if you say the wrong thing, that that's all, the mistake is the only thing people see, but that's not true, right? So but if you're dishonest, that will distort your image for sure. If you're dishonest, you try to cover up mistakes, you have this need to be perfect, and you're exaggerating and all this messiness, that leaves an impression on people and also creates like strained relationships. But if you're honest about, oh, I made a mistake, I'm sorry, my intention was good, and that's what you say to yourself too. I'm a good person, I had good intentions, I made a mistake, I'm going to learn from it, and then I'm going to keep trying, because that's all that healthy people look for, you know. But of course, if it's a narcissist, they're going to berate you, and that is what you have seen in the past. If you were berated or belittled, humiliated for your mistakes, rejected, criticized for your mistakes, then you will obviously be very defensive because you're very scared of making a mistake. If you're ashamed, right? If you are ashamed or laughed at by a bully for making a mistake, you will definitely not be some, you will definitely, be inauthentic, and that's the reason you will not admit when you're wrong. And this is a cycle, right? It's a cycle that you have to keep up if you're lying or so. But what happens is that when you're somebody who your inner parts are watching that. If you make a mistake and you lie about it and you cover it up, and then so that mess, not only the other person senses it, but you're watching it, your inner parts are watching it, and that's self-abandonment. So the part of you that made a mistake, you totally abandoned them and said, well, no, this didn't happen. So that inauthenticity leads to self-sabotage. Then behavioral pattern, the next one is inability to identify or ask for what you need or what you want, what you desire, right? And this really truly again stems from the fear of being rejected, or the belief that your needs, desire, wants are not important, right? So if you're somebody who was unheard, who was suppressed, denied, nobody cared, nobody listened, overlooked, not considered, that's a big wound. Not considered, overlooked, right? So you're going to also reject over time if your truth is not heard or validated, or as a child your truth was not heard, your needs were not met, you were invalidated, right? So then the child does the same thing for to themselves, copies that behavior, and then rejects their true self. And then slowly you forget what your needs are, you forget who you are, you forget what makes you you, right? So now when you start recovering and starting to connect with yourself, you start by taking the time, attuning to yourself and understanding, like, what do I really need, what do I truly want, what are my relationships like, right? So you practice it very, very clearly and respectfully, and you recognize that your desire, wants, and needs are just as valid as everyone else's. So start speaking up your truth, start advocating for yourself, right? Codependents are so good at advocating for other people's needs, wants, and desires, so good at thinking about what other people need, that they forget, what do I need? What are my needs, wants, and desires? Let's see. Are there any questions? I'm sorry that someone is copying you. That just is so frustrating and low life behavior. Not okay. And as an artist, you should be so authentic because that's what makes art, right? Not cool. All right. So then we talked about difficulty. This is a big one. Difficulty identifying or asking for, advocating for your needs, wants, and desires. So if you have difficulty talking about your needs, wants, and desires, then you're definitely a codependent, and especially around narcissists. Oh my goodness, even when I'm in recovery and I know what my needs, wants, and desires are, but when I'm around a narcissist, I tend to like just kind of like almost low key disconnect with myself and put them on a pedestal. And then I'm like, okay, what do I need? What can I do for you? Right. So, but now because I'm in recovery, I'm able to recognize very quickly that, oh, I just like forgot and betrayed myself, abandoned myself, and I'm making it all about the other person, which is so easy to do because for us, it's so easy to live according to other person, live for other people, but then no one is coming to save you, right? That's what this whole like sentence is for. No one is coming to save you means you've got to know yourself so you know what you need, and you can fulfill your needs and thrive, survive in life. No one else will do it for you, right? That's the thing with women. We've been conditioned for so long to forget our needs. We've been conditioned for so long to focus on other people that we just disconnect from ourselves. So coming back home is recovery, is doing the healing work. So the next behavioral pattern of codependency is perceiving themselves as superior to others, right? Thinking that individuals individuals who perceive themselves as superior to others, it's often a defense mechanism to mask underlying insecurities or feeling of inadequacy. So somebody can have low self-worth but still act as if, they're superior and haughty, and I'm better because I'm such a right good whatever, fill in the blank. So this behavior is usually, so when you say I'm superior or another person is superior, whenever there's a power differential, it's usually because you're feeling inadequate and insecure. So you put the other person on a pedestal, or you don't want to be seen less than. So you put yourself on a pedestal and reject others. So, regardless, if you don't think everyone's equal to you, you're doing this so you can disconnect relationships, right? It fosters a sense of isolation, right? And if you are a victimizer, if you belittle others, dismiss others, make them feel bad, you're doing this so they don't attack you. So before you come for me, I'm gonna come for you, right? So it could be a perceived threat that a lot of people respond to, right? So if someone shows up with, great confidence, whatever, they're looking great or they have this and that, so the trauma survivor will say, well, I have more this and that, and they will just reject that person, so that because they're feeling insecure themselves. You might frequently criticize others or adopt a condescending tone in conversations, positioning yourself as all, know it all, or all haughty mighty. And this is because, or you could say, I'm more knowledgeable, I'm more hardworking, I'm more capable, whatever, I'm a better blah, 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 whatever you say. If you say I'm better than them, that means that you are the one who needs a boost in your self-esteem. If you say I'm better than another human being, if you look down on other human beings, it's probably because you're insecure, right? So it's important to recognize value of humility and inherent and know that everybody's worthy. You're worthy, the other person is worthy, everybody has different qualities. So not to really, it's your inner critic that tells you that, oh, I'm going to criticize them, or they're not good enough, right? So if you're so obsessed with other people, it's again your other focus, you're distracting yourself from what's going on inside of you. So practice seeing strengths and contributions of those around you. Approach relationships with a spirit of mutual respect, curiosity, like what do you bring to the table and what do I bring to the table, and we all sit together, right? So rather than saying I'm superior, right, embrace equality, let go of the need to feel superior. And it comes with practice, it comes with humility, can also be cultivated with practice. And the next one is another big pattern that is very common in codependence, which is, I remember reading about these behaviors in your book. I could see myself in some and other behaviors in other people. I guess we're all dysfunctional. Okay, let me tell you something. Cindy is like, we're all, yes, that is true. We all have a little bit of dysfunction, and we all have dysfunction, but it's not for you to judge the dysfunction in other people. But it's good to say that we all are hurting, we all have challenges, we all have growth that we need to do, right? So, and yeah, most of the world has gone through trauma and has some sort of form, sort of dysfunction. Correct. And yeah, same, I've seen some patterns are mine, like the next one is my pattern, but which I've overcome quite a bit. But the feeling that others are not as good enough, that's not my pattern, but I've noticed it in many people. And it's usually because they're trying to feel secure. That's why they put they put others down, right? They put other people down so they can get a boost of self-esteem. They think that others are less than, so they can feel good about themselves, right? So if someone is doing good, people will say, well, they don't have this right, or this is wrong, or question their success and say, oh, they're successful because of, you know. So when you put other people's success down, when you put other people down, even in your mind, it's your inner critic doing it, and they're doing it so you could feel good enough about yourself, or you're feeling jealous, right? So, behavioral pattern of looking to other people to provide your sense of safety. Some people rely heavily on others to provide their sense of safety. And it's usually because of past trauma, that your nervous system is not strong or resilient, or you're used to being with groups and that's the only way you feel safe. This behavior can create dependency and a sense of helplessness, powerlessness. If you don't feel safe in your body without other people telling you or being with you, or if you're somebody who seeks constant reassurance from others and seeks decision making, or feels anxious, they can't be by themselves, right? So this habit, if you continue this pattern of seeking other people to feel safe and secure, this will stop you from building your own strength and resilience and nervous system. So really, when you look for to other people to make you feel safe, it just means your nervous system needs strengthening, and you need practice of conscious solitude so you can be safe with yourself consciously in solitude, and you enjoy your own company, and you then your inner family feels that you are safe, right? So a lot of people feel anxious, they don't feel safe because their nervous system is in a constant state of dysregulation. So if you're somebody who has fight or flight or fawn responses, right? So seek to cultivate safety in your nervous system first. The inner strength comes from a resilient nervous system. Emotional sobriety, emotional maturity comes when you have a resilient nervous system. And inner security, self reliance, right? That's a challenge for codependence because we want to be with others, we want to feel safe. And that's okay because human beings are we're group social people, we need community, but I'm talking about a different level of insecurity, that you cannot be alone. So that for that, you have to strengthen your nervous system with breath work. You have to tap in. You have to tell your parts, look, we were by ourselves and we're safe. This is, I am safe. And surround yourself with safe people, because a lot of times we don't we feel unsafe inside us because we're surrounded by unsafe people, and our parts know, right? So acknowledge that you are capable of taking care of yourself, you can take on challenges, and you can create safety in your body. And it's okay to be connected to nature and universe and your things, right, to begin with, so that you can feel that security and inner safety. All right, let us look at the chat. Okay, we're doing good. All right, let's keep going. Am I going too fast? I feel like I'm going so fast as usual. Maybe I should slow down. If there's any questions, pop them in the chat. Let me know. All right, cool. I love that. I know I just like going live in the evenings after I've done all my work and everything. So busy. All right. So another one is difficulty getting started or meeting deadlines or completing projects. So much fear around getting started on projects or completing them or meeting deadlines. So such an issue of self-esteem and self-worth and not feeling secure. So this behavior is linked to the procrastination or the perfectionism or the fear. It's fear of failure. It's all fear of failure, feeling or fear of what other people will say, if they will judge them, if they will criticize you. And it happens because that's what people in the past have done to you, right? So if your experience has been that you started something and then you got criticized and then you felt fearful or rejected or shame and you internalized it, right? So functional freeze will lead to procrastination. If your nervous system is in trauma, that will lead to procrastination. So all right, I think I have quite a few. So all right, so we're gonna start next time, probably tomorrow morning, on boundaries, difficulty, pattern of difficulty setting boundaries. Let me see it. Yeah. So this is where we're gonna stop. And then tomorrow or next time when I go live, I'm going to talk about behavioral pattern of inability to say no, inability to set healthy boundaries. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. And yeah, we will talk later. And I have a few more, I have a lot more behavioral patterns that I talk about. Thank you so much to you too. So, behavioral patterns that I talk about in my book. So, I think I have like 40 or 50 behavioral patterns that are very common in codependent individuals that I talk about in my book, and I will continue discussing them tomorrow morning on a live, and I will announce a live on my IG as well. Let me know if I'm going too fast. I'm gonna slow down. Okay then. I hope I'm not going too fast. Bye. Bye. Love you guys.